Ethan Harper wiped the sweat from his brow as he stared at the old tractor sitting under the big oak tree. Its paint was faded, rust had eaten holes in the metal, and the tires looked as if they had given up years ago. No one in the small town of Willow Creek would touch it. Everyone said it was beyond repair. But Ethan remembered his grandfather's stories, how this tractor could plow the fields faster than any new machine. He remembered the way his grandfather's eyes sparkled whenever he spoke about it. Ethan had never been very skilled with machines, but he liked to tinker. Today he decided it was finally time to try. He grabbed his toolbox, a rag and a bottle of water, and dragged himself over to the tractor. He looked at it closely. The hood was dented and one of the lights was missing. The engine made a strange noise even when it was off, like it was breathing. He crouched down and pulled out a wrench. He touched the engine gently, almost afraid it would bite him. "Come on, old friend," he whispered. "Let's see what's inside you." Ethan had worked on engines before, but nothing like this. The bolts were stubborn and the metal seemed too thick in some parts. He worked for hours, wiping grease from his hands, loosening nuts and examining pipes. Every time he thought he had fixed something, the engine would make a noise that didn't belong. A soft, rhythmic hum that was almost musical. "What is that?" he muttered. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. The hum seemed to come from inside a small hidden panel near the back of the engine. It was a panel he had never noticed before, even though he had helped his grandfather clean the tractor when he was a child. The panel had no handle, just a seam. He pressed it lightly and it popped open. Inside he froze. At first he thought it was a bundle of wires, but then something moved. Small, delicate, and blinking at him with round, bright eyes. Ethan jumped back, nearly hitting the toolbox. His heart raced. What are you?" he whispered. The small creature wiggled as if it had been trapped for a long time. It made a soft chirping sound, high and sweet, almost like a bird. It had tiny hands and feet, and its skin shimmered slightly in the sunlight. Ethan had never seen anything like it in his life. He knelt down slowly, trying not to scare it. The creature tilted its head and blinked again. Its eyes were huge and curious, filled with something Ethan could almost understand. Fear, yes, but also trust. He reached a hand out slowly. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature chirped again, moving a tiny hand toward him. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. His mind raced. Could it be some kind of animal? No, he had never seen anything like this. Could it be a toy or a robot? But it was alive. Somehow he knew it was alive. Ethan carefully lifted the creature from the panel. It fit perfectly in his hands, small enough to be held like a fragile egg. Its body was warm and it hummed softly, almost as if it was purring. Ethan laughed nervously. "You've been hiding in here all this time?" "Why?" The creature chirped again and pressed against his palm. Its eyes seemed to study him, and Ethan felt a strange connection. He had always dreamed of discovering something incredible, something no one else had ever seen. But he had never imagined it would be this, small, soft, and alive. He put the creature down gently on a clean patch of grass. It hopped a little, wobbling on its tiny legs, and then looked up at him again. Ethan noticed it had tiny markings on its skin, patterns that glowed faintly when the sunlight hit them. They looked like symbols or letters, but he couldn't recognize them. Ethan sat back on his heels, breathing heavily. "Grandpa, what did you leave in here?" he whispered. Memories of his grandfather flooded his mind. The man who had always loved mysteries, who had always told him that machines sometimes had secrets humans could not imagine. Could this be one of them? He glanced at the tractor again. It looked ordinary from the outside, but now he knew it was not ordinary. It had hidden something alive inside it, something completely impossible. He ran his hands through his hair. "I have to figure out what you are," he said aloud. The creature chirped in response as if it understood. For the rest of the afternoon, Ethan worked carefully around the tractor. He cleaned the hidden panel, checked wires, and made sure nothing could harm the tiny being. The creature seemed comfortable, hopping onto the edge of the panel and peering inside. Ethan laughed. "You really like your home, don't you?" As the sun began to set, the shadows stretched across the fields. Ethan looked down at the little creature. He didn't know where it had come from, or why his grandfather had hidden it inside the tractor. He didn't know if it was alone or if someone, or something, was looking for it. But one thing he did know, he couldn't leave it there. He gently picked it up again and held it close. "I guess we're partners now," he said. The creature chirped softly and blinked at him. Ethan smiled for the first time in a long while. He felt a mix of excitement and fear, but mostly wonder. Something incredible had found him, hidden in his grandfather's old tractor, and he was ready to find out what it was. That night, Ethan went inside the small farmhouse and placed the creature in a soft basket. He gave it some water and watched as it chirped and explored. He could feel its tiny heartbeat, fast and strong. He didn't know if it could eat human food or if it would even stay. But it didn't matter. He would figure that out. Outside, the stars began to appear one by one. Ethan looked out the window and thought about his grandfather. He wondered if he had known this moment would come, if he had hoped Ethan would find the tractor's secret. The hum from the engine drifted faintly through the night air, like a whisper, and Ethan felt a thrill run through him. Something extraordinary was here and it had chosen him. And as he watched the tiny creature sleep, safe in his hands, he realized that his quiet life on the farm would never be the same again. Ethan Harper could hardly sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought about the tiny creature curled up in the basket near his bed. It was small, no bigger than a rabbit, but it had a presence that made the room feel alive. Its soft chirps and little glowing markings kept him awake, but he didn't mind. He wanted to know more about it. In the morning he prepared a small plate of milk and crumbs of bread, unsure if the creature could eat human food. He placed it carefully in front of the basket and watched. The little being sniffed at the food, then tilted its head and chirped. It didn't eat, but it seemed curious. Ethan laughed softly. Okay, maybe you're picky. Or maybe you don't eat what we eat. He spent the morning observing it. The creature moved with surprising speed, hopping lightly on its tiny legs. Its skin shimmered when the sunlight hit it, showing faint patterns that changed color as it moved. Its eyes were large and bright, reflecting a mix of curiosity and intelligence. Every so often it would make a chirping sound, almost like it was trying to talk. Ethan tried to imitate the sounds, but it only tilted its head and blinked at him. Despite its small size, the creature was brave. It explored every corner of the farmhouse, crawling over the wooden furniture, sniffing the air, and even hopping onto the windowsill to look outside. Ethan followed it closely, not wanting it to get hurt. You really like exploring, don't you? He asked. The creature chirped in response, and for a moment Ethan felt as if it understood him. By noon, Ethan decided to take the creature outside. He thought maybe fresh air and sunlight would help it feel at home. He carried the basket to the edge of the fields, where the grass swayed gently in the breeze. The creature hopped out carefully, looking around with wide eyes. Its small body seemed to glow faintly in the sunlight, and Ethan could not help but smile. The tiny being seemed to enjoy the outdoors. It sniffed the grass, chased a few falling leaves, and chirped happily. Ethan realized it was intelligent. Its movements were not random but purposeful. It seemed to notice details like the way the wind bent the grass, or how the shadows of trees moved across the ground. He had never seen anything like it. Ethan spent hours with it, trying to understand it. He noticed that it reacted to his voice, especially when he spoke softly. When he called its name, he realized it didn't have a name yet. I guess I'll just call you Pip, he said, thinking of the small, bright-eyed character from a story he had loved as a child. Pip chirped twice, almost like a laugh, and hopped closer to him. Ethan laughed. I think you like your name. As the day went on, Ethan became more confident. He realized Pip was not dangerous. It did not bite or scratch. It did not show fear, only caution. When he reached out his hand, Pip would touch it lightly with its tiny fingers, as if testing the human's intentions. Ethan felt a connection he could not explain. It was like the creature trusted him immediately, without question. That evening, Ethan went to his grandfather's old shed to search for clues. Maybe there was something in the notes or tools that explained Pip. He found some dusty journals, written in his grandfather's careful handwriting. One page mentioned a hidden friend who needed protection. Another page described a small machine that could house a living being safely for long periods. Ethan's heart raced. Could this be about Pip? Had his grandfather known something incredible? He carried the journals back to the farmhouse and sat with Pip in his lap. He read aloud, trying to make sense of the notes. Pip chirped occasionally, tilting its head as if it understood the words. Ethan smiled. Maybe you are connected to this, Pip. Maybe your home was meant to be here with us. The creature blinked and chirped again. As the night fell, Ethan built a small, soft nest for Pip near the fireplace. He lined it with blankets and a small cushion, careful to make it comfortable. Pip explored the nest, hopping over the blankets and curling up in the middle. It looked peaceful, but Ethan could see its eyes scanning the room, alert and intelligent. He sat beside it, thinking about what he had found. The tractor had hidden Pip for a reason, he was sure of it. But why? Who had sent it here? And what was it? Pip seemed ordinary in size but extraordinary in nature. Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and worry. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing: he had to protect Pip. For the first time since he had discovered the creature, Ethan allowed himself to relax. He whispered stories to Pip, tales of his grandfather, of the farm, and of the little adventures he had as a boy. Pip chirped softly in response, almost like it was listening carefully. Ethan laughed quietly. "I think you like stories," he said. "Maybe we'll have many adventures together." Hours passed and the room grew quiet. Pip curled up in the nest, its body glowing faintly in the dim light. Ethan watched it sleep, feeling a strange sense of wonder and responsibility. He realized that his quiet life on the farm was changing. He had found something incredible, something that no one else in the world had ever seen. And somehow he knew that Pip had chosen him just as much as he had chosen Pip. As he turned off the light and lay down to sleep, Ethan thought about the future. He didn't know if Pip was alone, or if someone or something would come looking for it. He didn't know what secrets were hidden in the tractor or in his grandfather's past. But he knew one thing: he would keep Pip safe. And he would learn everything he could about this tiny passenger, the creature who had appeared in his life like a miracle. Outside, the wind rustled the trees and the stars began to shine. Ethan Harper, a simple farmer in a quiet town, felt the first stirring of something larger than himself. The universe, he realized, had just sent him a visitor. And this visitor, small and curious and bright-eyed, was about to change everything. Ethan Harper could not stop thinking about Pip. Every moment he wondered where it had come from and why it had been hidden inside the old tractor. The little creature slept peacefully in its nest, but Ethan's mind raced. He decided it was time to search for answers. Maybe the key was in his grandfather's old things. He went to the attic, a dusty space full of old trunks, books, and boxes of tools. Sunlight filtered through a small window, lighting up the room. Ethan started opening boxes, looking for anything his grandfather might have left behind. Most of it was ordinary, old photographs, farming tools, letters, but then he found a small leather-bound journal. It had his grandfather's name, Robert Harper, carefully written on the cover. Ethan opened the journal and saw pages filled with neat handwriting. Some pages had sketches of the farm, some had notes about crops and machinery, but a section near the back caught his eye. The pages were different here. There were drawings of small, glowing creatures, sketches of machines that looked like the tractor, and notes written in a mix of words and symbols. Ethan's heart pounded. Could this be about Pip? He read aloud, "The hidden passenger must be protected. It is small, fragile, and intelligent. It will be safer in human hands. Trust that the right person will come." Ethan froze. That sounded exactly like what had happened. Pip had chosen him, or maybe his grandfather had known he would find it one day. He turned the pages carefully. There were more notes describing a visitor from the stars, and a living being carried in a disguise. His grandfather had written about helping it, feeding it, and keeping it safe from those who might not understand. Ethan felt a chill. His grandfather had been keeping a secret for years, and now Ethan was part of it. Ethan looked down at Pip, who had crawled into his lap and was chirping softly. The little creature blinked up at him with those large, curious eyes. Ethan smiled, feeling a connection he could not explain. "So it's true," he whispered. "You're from somewhere far away and Grandpa knew you needed help." Pip chirped again as if it understood him. He kept reading. His grandfather had written about a time long ago when a small ship had crashed near the farm. A tiny being had emerged, frightened and alone. Robert Harper had hidden it inside the tractor while it recovered, using a special machine to keep it safe. That must have been Pip, or maybe Pip's parent. The tractor was more than a machine, it was a safe home. Ethan leaned back thinking. His grandfather had trusted humans to protect this creature. He had trusted the farm, the quiet fields, and his own family to keep it safe. And now the responsibility was on Ethan's shoulders. He felt both proud and nervous. He had never thought he would be part of something so important. He found another note. It said, "Do not fear the stars. They may come, but kindness and care will guide the way." Ethan wondered if this meant other beings might visit. Would they come for Pip? Or for him? He looked down at the tiny creature, who seemed completely unaware of the questions swirling in his mind. Pip chirped happily, hopping onto Ethan's shoulder as if to remind him that everything was okay, for now. The journal also contained instructions. His grandfather had written about feeding the creature, observing it, and keeping it comfortable. There were sketches of foods, small toys, and even a way to track its health using simple tools. Ethan realized his grandfather had thought of everything. It was as if he had known the day would come when Ethan would take over this secret mission. Ethan spent hours reading. He learned about how his grandfather had spoken softly to the creature, teaching it basic sounds and gestures. He had built the hidden panel in the tractor so the being could rest safely and travel if needed. Every detail showed love and careful planning. Ethan felt a deep respect for the man he had always admired. As he read, he noticed something strange. Some of the sketches in the journal looked like the stars above the farm. There were symbols that matched constellations, and tiny arrows that seemed to indicate movement between them. His grandfather had been tracking something, maybe Pip's origin or the place it had come from. Ethan felt a thrill. This was not just about a creature on his farm, it was connected to something bigger, something beyond Earth. He looked down at Pip again. The creature blinked, reaching out a tiny hand toward the journal. Ethan laughed. "You want to help too, huh?" Pip chirped in response, hopping closer. Ethan realized that Pip was not just a passenger. It was intelligent and curious, ready to learn and perhaps even to teach. That evening, Ethan carried the journal to the living room. Pip explored the pages, tapping at sketches and chirping excitedly. Ethan spoke softly, reading aloud passages about safety, care, and the importance of trust. Pip listened, blinking and moving in response to the words. It was clear that Pip was learning, and Ethan felt a sense of connection growing between them. Ethan also realized he had questions he could not answer alone. He wanted to know where Pip had come from, if others like it existed, and what the tractor had really been built for. But he knew he had to be patient. His grandfather had left him the responsibility, not the answers. Ethan smiled. He could do this. He could protect Pip, learn from Pip, and discover the secrets that had been hidden on the farm for so many years. As night fell, Ethan put Pip back in its soft nest. He closed the journal, careful to keep it safe. Outside, the stars glimmered in the sky, bright and steady. Ethan sat by the window, holding Pip gently. He felt a mixture of wonder, excitement, and a little fear. The universe had sent him a visitor, a tiny passenger with a story he had yet to understand. And Ethan knew one thing for certain. His grandfather had trusted humans to do what was right. Now it was his turn. He would protect Pip, uncover the secrets of the tractor, and perhaps, one day, discover the truth about the stars themselves. Ethan Harper had never felt the night so quiet. The fields around his farmhouse were dark except for the soft glow of stars above. Pip slept in its little nest near the fireplace, its tiny body glowing faintly, casting moving patterns across the room. Ethan sat at the window, staring out into the sky. He wondered where Pip had come from and whether anyone or anything else was looking for it. He did not have to wait long to find out. A strange light appeared above the fields, hovering silently. It was not like any airplane or drone he had ever seen. The light pulsed gently, almost as if it were breathing. Ethan froze, unsure whether to feel fear or wonder. His first instinct was to protect Pip. He scooped the creature into his arms, holding it close. The light grew brighter and a soft hum filled the air. Ethan's heart pounded. Suddenly, a voice spoke, not through words but directly in his mind. "Do not be afraid. We mean no harm." Ethan blinked, staring at the empty night. Pip chirped softly, tilting its head. It seemed to understand the voice. Ethan whispered, You're aliens, aren't you?" The voice answered, calm and gentle. "We are observers. We watched your grandfather and we watched you. The small one is safe in your care. We wish to see if humans are worthy." Ethan's mind raced. Worthy? Of what? And why was his little passenger so important? He looked down at Pip, who chirped happily as if it knew everything was going to be okay. Ethan realized that his grandfather's secret had not only hidden Pip but had also hidden the trust of beings from far away. The light shifted and descended closer to the farm. Ethan could make out shapes, tall, thin figures with soft glowing outlines. They did not have faces like humans, but somehow Ethan could sense their intelligence and emotion. He held Pip tighter, but he felt no danger. The creatures seemed calm, almost cautious. "We have come to learn," the voice continued. "Humans often act out of fear. We wish to see if kindness can exist even when the unknown is near." Ethan nodded slowly. He understood. They were testing him. And he realized something else. Pip had already shown them the answer. He stepped outside, holding Pip carefully. The field was bathed in silver light from the hovering shapes. The alien figures moved closer, but never aggressively. One of them extended a limb, or something like a hand, toward him. Ethan lowered Pip slowly. The creature chirped and reached out too, touching the alien lightly. For a moment, everything was still. Then the alien responded with a soft glow. Ethan realized that Pip's presence had built trust. The aliens had not expected humans to care so deeply for a tiny being. They had watched from the sky, waiting to see if fear or curiosity would win. And now they were learning that human kindness could be strong, patient, and unwavering. He spoke softly to the aliens. "I don't know where Pip came from or why it was left with me. I only know that it is safe and I will protect it." The voice in his mind pulsed gently, almost like a laugh. You have passed the first test. The small one is more than it appears, and so are you. Ethan's heart raced. He did not fully understand, but he knew the aliens respected him and Pip. The night felt larger, as if the stars themselves had leaned closer to watch. He looked at Pip, who blinked and chirped happily as if it understood the moment's importance. The aliens moved around the farm quietly, scanning the area. They made no sudden movements, but Ethan could sense their intelligence. He realized they were observing him closely, how he cared for Pip, how he handled the situation, and how he acted with patience. Every choice mattered. Hours passed. The aliens finally spoke again, their voice calm and warm. We have seen what humans can do. Not all are patient, not all are kind. But you have shown us that care can exist even in isolation. This is why the small one was left with your family. Ethan felt a swell of pride. He had always wanted to make his grandfather proud. Now, in a way, he had. The light above the field dimmed slightly. The alien shapes began to rise into the sky, preparing to leave. Ethan held Pip close and waved softly. The voice spoke one last time. The small one will need guidance in time. You have shown it the path of care and trust. You have done well, Ethan Harper. Your kindness has echoed across the stars. Ethan watched as the shapes disappeared into the night, leaving only the quiet fields and the twinkling stars. He felt a mix of relief and wonder. He did not fully understand everything that had happened, but he knew that something incredible had occurred. Pip had not only been safe in his care, but he had also earned the trust of beings from far beyond Earth. As he walked back to the farmhouse, he realized how different life had become. The world felt larger, more mysterious, and full of possibilities. He looked at Pip, who chirped softly and climbed onto his shoulder. We have a lot to learn, Ethan said. Pip blinked and chirped in response as if agreeing. That night, Ethan placed Pip back in its soft nest near the fireplace. He sat by the window looking at the stars. He thought about the aliens, about his grandfather, and about the little being he had discovered. He understood something important now. Humanity was not measured by strength, by weapons, or by power. It was measured by care, patience, and the courage to protect something fragile. Ethan whispered, "We're ready for whatever comes next, Pip." Pip chirped, its tiny body glowing softly, and Ethan felt a sense of peace. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the connection that had been made. And for the first time, Ethan Harper knew that the quiet farm he had always loved was part of something much larger. The universe had come looking, and it had seen what humans could be. Kind, patient, brave, and most of all, capable of love. Ethan Harper woke early as he always did, but today he felt different. The night had been quiet, the stars clear and bright, and Pip was already awake in its little nest, chirping softly. Ethan smiled and picked it up. "Good morning, Pip," he said. The little creature chirped in response, its tiny fingers wrapping around his thumb. He walked outside to the fields, holding Pip close. The air smelled fresh and the sun was just beginning to rise. Ethan thought about the events of the past days, the tractor, the discovery of Pip, his grandfather's secret, and the visit from the aliens. It all felt unreal, but it had happened. And now it was his responsibility to care for Pip, to help it grow, and to prepare it for whatever lay ahead. Ethan decided to show Pip the farm properly. He carried it from the house to the fields, letting it hop onto the soft grass. Pip chirped excitedly, exploring every corner. It sniffed the soil, touched the leaves, and even tried to chase a butterfly. Ethan laughed, feeling a warmth in his chest. He realized that Pip was not only curious and intelligent but also joyful. Its happiness was contagious. As they walked, Ethan thought about the future. Pip was special, no doubt about it. And the aliens had said that it would need guidance. That guidance was not just about survival, it was about learning what it meant to trust, to care, and to understand others. Ethan knew he was part of that lesson. Humanity had been tested, and somehow he and his little passenger had passed. He returned to the farmhouse and decided to make a few improvements for Pip. He built a small play area with soft blankets, toys, and little objects that Pip could explore safely. He even fashioned a tiny water trough and a small feeding area, following the notes in his grandfather's journal. Pip chirped happily as Ethan worked, hopping around and investigating every new item. Ethan sat down beside Pip and spoke softly. "You've been through a lot, little one. You've been hidden, you've been alone, and now you're here. But you're safe. I promise." Pip blinked and chirped, pressing its small hand against Ethan's cheek. It was a gesture of trust, a simple way of saying, "I understand." Ethan's heart swelled with emotion. Days turned into weeks and Ethan taught Pip many things. He showed it how to recognize tools, how to understand simple human gestures, and how to explore safely without fear. Pip learned quickly, always curious, always attentive. It seemed to understand not only words but also feelings. Ethan realized that this tiny being had the capacity to teach him just as much as he was teaching it. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, Ethan heard a faint hum in the distance. He looked up at the sky and saw the soft glow of the alien shapes again, hovering above the farm. Pip chirped excitedly and reached out its tiny hand. Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The aliens had returned. The voice spoke in Ethan's mind again, calm and gentle. You have cared for the small one well. You have shown that humans can nurture and protect, even when faced with the unknown. This is the quality we value most. Ethan nodded, holding Pip close. I only did what felt right, he whispered. I couldn't let it be alone. The voice continued. Your actions have planted a seed. Humanity has been observed, and the care you have shown has been noted. This small one will carry the lesson forward. The universe remembers what you have done here. Ethan felt a sense of awe. He realized that his simple acts of kindness, patience, and courage had consequences far beyond the farm, beyond Earth, even beyond what he could imagine. The alien shapes began to rise higher, slowly disappearing into the night sky. Pip chirped, watching them go, and Ethan whispered, They know you're safe. They know we're doing our part. Pip chirped again, almost in agreement, and Ethan smiled. He understood now that the little creature was more than just a passenger, it was a bridge between worlds. In the following weeks, life on the farm returned to its quiet rhythm, but Ethan felt a new sense of purpose. He and Pip explored the fields together, cared for the animals, and maintained the tractor that had hidden the little being for so many years. Ethan often looked at the stars at night, thinking of the aliens and the message they had sent. Humanity had been shown to the universe, not through strength or conquest, but through care, patience, and trust. Ethan also thought about his grandfather. Robert Harper had known that humans could be more than ordinary. He had left behind the tractor, the journal, and the responsibility to guide Pip. Ethan felt proud to carry on that legacy. He realized that sometimes the smallest acts of love and courage could echo farther than anyone imagined. One morning, Ethan carried Pip to the edge of the field, letting it hop freely among the grass and flowers. Pip chirped and danced, glowing softly in the sunlight. Ethan watched, feeling a sense of hope and joy. The creature had grown stronger, more confident, and happier under his care. It was ready for whatever lay ahead. Ethan whispered, We've planted something important, Pip. Not just in the fields but in the universe. Pip chirped, reaching up and touching his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried meaning. They had done something together that mattered, something that would last far longer than either of them could see. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan Harper stood in the quiet fields, holding Pip close. The stars appeared one by one, shining brightly above. He felt connected to something greater than himself, something larger than Earth. Humanity had been shown at its best, and the tiny creature in his hands was proof. Proof that care, trust, and love could cross worlds. Ethan smiled. No matter what comes, Pip, we're ready. We'll protect, we'll learn, and we'll show the universe what humans can do. Pip chirped happily, glowing in agreement. Ethan Harper, a simple farmer, had discovered that the smallest acts could have the greatest impact. And together, he and Pip had planted the seeds of hope, kindness, and trust across the stars. The wind whispered through the fields, the stars glimmered above, and the quiet farm seemed alive with possibility. Ethan Harper held Pip tightly, feeling a deep sense of peace. Humanity had been tested, and it had passed. And the tiny passenger, the creature hidden in an old tractor, would carry that lesson forward, far beyond the fields of Willow Creek, into a universe that was finally beginning to understand the heart of humans.